Good evening from Rocky Mountain PBS. I'm Cynthia Hessen. Thanks for joining us for Colorado State of Mind. And on our minds tonight, some unexpected twists and turns on the climate change front, just as the World Talks in Copenhagen start on Monday. Our guests are all people who take an active interest in this topic, and here they are.
I'm Lee Bowie. I'm with Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association. We're the not-for-profit wholesale power provider to 44 rural electric cooperatives and public power districts in the West.
But let's start with what we think President Barack Obama is going in with when he attends the climate meeting next week. What do you expect that he's going to commit this country to? How is it going to be monitored here or elsewhere?
Maintaining the competitiveness of the American economy is going to be critical in this process, and it's going to be interesting to watch the positioning of both the developing and the industrialized countries as Copenhagen proceeds. But those principles are very key to what happens here at home in Washington, where we need to ensure that electric rates, energy costs are kept affordable. It's critical to the economic recovery. It's critical to the continuation and growth of jobs and investment here in the West.
And boy, it has turned partisan. Betsy, I know you want to talk about this situation with the emails.
There's no question that some credibility is at stake here, and very tough questions are being asked. In the near term, I think it's going to have an effect on what does happen in the Senate next year, both in the pace and the intensity of the pursuit of climate legislation. So it remains to be seen just how far and widespread this issue is and what effects it could have next year.
It's not clear that opposite science or opposite scientific thinking was suppressed.
Regardless of where you stand on the science, the rubber hits the road when you look at the policy issues and how Congress is going to treat those next year. And the principles that they adhere to, the work that they do to ensure that electric rates, energy costs remain affordable, that in our case electric system reliability is preserved, that we're making the investments that we need to make in technology, and that any policies have appropriate time frames for adaptation. And beyond all that, with Copenhagen, we need to make sure that there's international participation and that participation is meaningful.
Talk about what might happen in Congress next year.
Senators Lieberman, Graham, and Kerry are going to be likely working with the key committee chairs in the Senate to produce new legislation that will take another attempt at addressing climate. Certainly the bill that was passed out of the Environment and Public Works Committee at the Senate earlier this year had significant costs, and we had significant concerns with that legislation, as we did with the Waxman-Markey legislation. What is a positive sign is that Senators Bennett and Udall, along with 12 other Democratic senators, signed on to a letter addressing some of the issues with how allocations would be apportioned in a cap-and-trade program. And that's been an important point for the electric cooperatives and really utilities and consumers across the West. And these are two senators who are in a position, obviously, to support climate change legislation, yet they signed on to this letter. It really is a sign that many in the Senate are looking at what the real challenges are with legislation and trying to figure out what is just the right approach and addressing some of the harder issues with some of the bills that have been passed either out of the Senate or out of the House or out of Senate committees.
Lee, tell us more about what utilities are doing in this area.
If we're going to successfully address greenhouse gas emissions, if we're going to be able to manage our emissions as a region, as a country, as a world, we're going to need to invest in technology. And utilities are making significant investments in new technology development that is really critical to be able to go forward and manage emissions. For Tri-State, for instance, we are participating in a number of carbon sequestration projects, as well as we just received DOE funding and are putting our own funds in to a major carbon sequestration assessment in northwest Colorado near our Craig power plant. This week we're also announcing an expanded agreement with the Electric Power Research Institute looking at integrating concentrated solar power with a coal-powered plant in New Mexico. So there are significant things that can be done with technology that help ensure affordability, ensure reliability. Addressing emissions from coal-based power plants is a big part of that. Coal is an important part of keeping electric rates affordable, keeping energy reliable. So we need to develop technologies that will continue to allow us to use coal in a responsible way.
We will leave it there for this week of Colorado's State of Mind. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have comments on tonight's discussion, we hope you'll share those with other viewers at our website, rmpbs.org. And now thank you very much to this week's guests for a great discussion, Sally Rennie and John Golden Dubois, Betsy Marston, and Lee Bowie. Thank you all for taking time to do this. And next week, we're going to be looking at the status of the home foreclosure crisis, as well as what a slowly recovering market is showing potential buyers. That's next Friday evening at 7:30. So glad you could join us on this Friday. I'm Cynthia Hessen. Good night.
Risks.
Well, I think we have to be particularly sensitive to low-income people in this argument, because I think we obviously don't want to push people into poverty because of cost of energy, but I don't think that's the real issue. I think the real issue is, are we going to embrace an economy of the future, or are we going to stay rooted in either the past or even where we are today?